Good morning. Welcome to Northwest, a Unitarian Universalist congregation. I'm Tom Ott, your worship associate for this morning's service, and we welcome Christy Cardinal with us this morning in the pulpit. Christy is a candidate for the U ministry, and they graduated recently from Star King School for the ministry. If you are a visitor online and would like Northwest to stay in touch with you, please fill out the visitor form you will see in the chat box, and if you were with us in person, you can fill out the visitor sign-in form in the atrium. Please greet your neighbor with a wave from wherever you are, whether you are here with us online or here in person. And then before we begin the prelude, we'll all take a deep breath and settle into a time for worship.
You gotta hold everybody. You gotta hold everybody up. You gotta hold everybody. You gotta hold everybody up. Hold everybody up, up, up. Hold everybody up, up, up. Hold everybody up, up, up. Hold everybody up. Just because you look like you and I look like me doesn't mean we can't be friends. You're not my enemy. You gotta hold everybody. You gotta hold everybody up. You gotta hold everybody. You gotta hold everybody up. Hold everybody up, up, up. Hold everybody up, up, up. Hold everybody up, up, up. Hold everybody up. People all around the world sometimes feel so sad, but when others show they care, well, things don't seem so bad. You gotta hold everybody. You gotta hold everybody up. You gotta hold everybody. You gotta hold everybody up. Hold everybody up, up, up. Hold everybody up, up, up. Hold everybody up, up, up. Hold everybody up. You gotta hold everybody. You gotta hold everybody up. You gotta hold everybody. You gotta hold everybody up. Hold everybody up, up, up. Hold everybody up, up, up. Hold everybody up, up, up. Hold everybody up.
We begin our service today with a land acknowledgement. We collectively acknowledge that Northwest Unitarian Universalist Church occupies the ancestral, traditional, and contemporary lands of the Anishinaabe Three Fires Confederacy of Ojibwa, Odawa, and Potawatomi peoples. In particular, the congregation resides on land ceded in the 1807 Treaty of Detroit. We recognize, support, and advocate for the sovereignty of Michigan's 12 federally recognized Indian nations, for historic indigenous communities in Michigan, for indigenous individuals and communities who live here now, and for those who were forcibly removed from their homelands. By offering this land acknowledgement, we pledge ourselves to justice and repair, both with the land and its people. Okay, we light our chalice, the symbol of our faith, knowing this morning that many other Unitarian Universalist congregations across this land and around the world are doing the same. We light our chalice with words from the Reverend Elizabeth Mount. From our very first breath, we reach out. Co-regulation, not self-regulation, is in our nature. We find our cues from the sun and the moon, from each parent and caregiver. We find our place in this great turning planet by turning to one another, generation to generation. We awaken to the dawn and fall asleep at the evening's end. Our life's journey is part of something greater, something simple, something divine. A flame cannot be lit without a spark, a life cannot begin without the air, and we cannot begin to find ourselves without love. May we reach out to one another. May we offer love and nurturing care. May we join together in celebration of the interdependence of our lives. In this spirit, let us worship together.
Rise up, O flame, by thy light glowing, show to us beauty, vision, and joy.
Okay. And today we have opening words, Invocation by Everett Hoagland. Architect of icebergs, rainbows, jeweler of crystals, sand grains, snowflakes, atoms, mason whose tools are glaciers, rain, rivers, ocean, chemist who made blood of seawater, bone of minerals in stone, milk of love. Whatever you are, I know this. Spinner, you are everywhere, in all the ever-changing above, whirling around us. Yes, in the loose strands, in the rough weave of the common cloth threaded with our DNA on the hubbed, spoked, spinning wheel that is this world, solar system, galaxy, universe. Help us to see ourselves in all creation and all creation in ourselves in one another. Remind those of us who like connections made with similes, metaphors, symbols. All of us are, everything is already connected. Remind us, as oceans go, so go we. As the air goes, so go we. As other life forms on earth go, so go we. As our planet goes, so go we. Mysterious muse who inspired, in the beginning was the word, edit our thoughts so our ethics are our politics and our actions the afterlives of our words. Our first hymn is number 131 in Singing the Living Tradition. Love will guide us. You're invited to rise in body or spirit as you are willing and able.
Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us will lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night. If you cannot sing like angels, if you cannot speak before thousands, you can give from deep within you. You can change the world with your love. Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us will lead the way on the road
One purpose of a religious community is to encourage all who gather together to grow more generous in spirit and in action. This is the great end of all the world's faith traditions, to bring the human being closer to the divine by acts of creation and compassion. We now take an offering that allows us to exercise that all-important generosity of spirit, an offering that will mutually support this self-supporting congregation and the shared plate recipient. Every other month throughout the year, Northwest shares 50% of the plate collection with the Southfield Emergency Needs Fund. Their goal is to help residents overcome personal hurdles to achieve a satisfying and productive quality of life. Human Services is a division of Southfield Community Relations. If you would like to donate, you can do so in a variety of ways that are now visible on your screen. And for those here in person, we will pass a collection plate for baskets and cash. Our next hymn is number 1008 in Singing the Living Tradition. When our hearts are in a holy place, and you're invited to rise in body or spirit as you are willing and able.
When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we trust the wisdom in each of us, every color, every creed and kind, and we see our faces in each other's eyes, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we tell our story from deep inside, and we listen with a loving mind, and we hear our voices in each other's words, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we share the silence of sacred space, and the God of our heart stirs within, and we feel the power of each other's faith, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place.
Our reading today is We Are Jazz by Reverend Adam Lawrence Dyer. Just as soon as it began, we forgot how it started. Like a Coltrane tune, we are so absorbed in trying to follow, to figure out, we forget that we are part of it. Every tune needs ears, and every ear needs a tune. Some let the sounds wash past them, and others are tapping, clapping, snapping, a slap-happy chorus. Embodied instruments becoming part of the beat. Jazz is a heartbeat. Its heartbeat is yours, said Langston. Played Mingus, sang Ella. The sound that swings, blues, and rocks is us, is us. Its dissonance is our politics, its harmony our dream. The drum thumps brutal as the masters whip, the cymbals sizzle like native bodies ablaze, the saxophones wail and climax like rape, the horns push their musical destiny, while the bass bubbles underneath like God, underscoring the only true sounds, nature and time, improbable, unfathomable, unconscionable, unconscious. The United States of otherness, we are jazz. African rhythm played on European instruments, toying with Asian harmonies in a language made of Middle Eastern letters, while standing on the first people's land where none of us belongs. Yet, that is the brutal beauty of any combo, because the instruments are not alike. The players are individuals. None of them belong where they are, and none of them belong together. A Dixieland chorus of separate lines, just lucky to be in the same key, in the same room. Yet they make the most beautiful music, with depth, range, beauty, heart. Hearty, chop suey. Jazz is a heartbeat. Our heartbeat is jazz.
I was making a quick edit before I came up. Sorry about that. Good morning, everyone. My name, if you haven't read it a million times and heard it a million times, Christy Cardinal. My pronouns are they, them. In the spirit of visual accessibility, I'm going to give you a brief description of what I look like. I am a middle-aged, white, non-binary person. I am fat with silvery hair. I wear glasses. And I'm wearing a light brown jacket, a blue shirt, and a coral orangish tie. Coral is one of the best colors because it is pink and orange at the same time. Just letting you know that. This flame is making me nervous, so it's generous. I'm really, really glad and grateful to be with all of you this morning, and I appreciate Ben inviting me to come spend some time with you. The title of this sermon is That We Need One Another, and that comes from a slogan that the Unitarian Universalist Ministers Association uses, and we do. Okay, thanks, bye. No, that's, just kidding. Really, what I used to believe, and that wasn't very long ago, that when someone in our community made grievous errors or hurt someone else's feelings, my obligation then was to, kick them out, right? I believed that there were some transgressions that we could not ignore, we could not overlook. We needed to do our best to keep everybody safe by kicking people out who did bad things, as we decided they were bad. Two things changed that belief for me. Well, probably 100 things, but two things I'm going to talk about this morning. The first is that I became a Unitarian Universalist. I was forthrightly evangelized into this faith, which may sound unfamiliar, but I promise you that's what happened to me. And second, getting kicked out of community for doing something harmful happened to me. So not that long ago, I learned that someone I'd been in an organizing group with over 20 years ago was holding a grudge about me. Apparently, I had treated her and a friend of hers unkindly in an interaction regarding this group that we were involved with finances. I must confess, I have almost no memory of this specific event. Though I do remember there was some tension. I just have it's not specific, right? I had, however, been living in blissful ignorance of this person's burning hot coal of resentment for decades. No idea. I found out, though, through common friends who mentioned it in passing as if everyone already knew this. And I interrogated that a little bit. I wanted to know more. And they even let me know in that moment that she had asked people not to invite me to things, not to include me in events and conversations in the very group we were working together in. You know that record scratch sound? I heard that right then. I couldn't believe that she'd held on to this thing that I barely remembered, telling who knows how many other mutual acquaintances that I had treated her poorly and was not to be trusted or held in community. I don't know exactly, and I probably won't ever find out. I found it hard not to be defensive. I still do to some extent. And I try to operate in general from the perspective that other people's opinions of me are none of my business, unless they bring those opinions to me to discuss. This felt bigger and different in some way because it involved my engagement with community, not just an interpersonal relationship. So I'm not going to deny that I treated her poorly. Again, I don't remember. And in my early to mid-20s, I was a hard-edged, obnoxious, punk kid whose frontal lobe had barely finished coalescing. I very well may have said something out of line once or twice. I mean, I had no life experience. I had hardly any work experience. I had not found my faith. I hadn't been married and divorced twice, or parented, or done any of the myriad things that give us humility and grace and tact. My heart had yet to grow into my body. It had yet to fill in the cracks of my own hurt. And I am certain that there were times back then that I said and did things that my current self would be appalled by. Things that hurt others with little to no repair. Truly, I am grateful every day there was no Instagram or Facebook in those days. Right? Holy cow. In any case, I won't deny that I did something unkind. I engaged in the work of that community because I cared about what they were doing. It was a group for queer folks doing some very specific work, and it was a small subset of an already small group. And I showed up, right? So anyone who showed up and cared about what they were doing was immediately recruited into leadership. Familiar with that experience? They didn't care much that I had no idea what I was doing because I was showing up. And showing up was what mattered because I was the one showing up. And this other person was showing up too. And in the midst of that showing up, I hurt this person. I hurt someone with whom I was in community. And that was a mistake, and I'm sorry for my actions and words that caused hurt. I'm also sorry and very sad for whatever I did to make this person think they couldn't just talk to me. Honestly, that's probably what I'm the most sad about. Had she just talked to me, if we'd sat together and discussed the issue, decades of hurt could have been prevented. Who knows what opportunities we lost, right? Who knows what our community lost because we did not face our conflict together. These days, almost 50-year-old me may not be any smarter than I was 25 years ago, but I am sure of a few things. And one of them is that no one is disposable. No one is disposable. In the beloved community to which we aspire, we don't have the luxury of throwing people out when their actions make us angry or even when they hurt our feelings, because they keep showing up, right? If we truly want to be in right relationship with people, with our community, with our people we're sitting with now, we must face our conflicts. Because we need one another. And we don't just need one another because who's going to make the coffee, right? We need one another for our actual survival. And I know this because of my faith. Will you indulge me in a small side quest / detour? Because, that was a rhetorical question because I'm going to do it. Because I want to talk a little bit about the transcendentalists like Emerson for a minute. To be completely, again, transparent, I am an authentic person. What you see is what you get. I did my undergrad in English literature. So when I went to seminary and had to read Emerson again, I was so mad. Just bitter. Because I, as an undergraduate, again, back at that before my frontal lobe situation time, I found Emerson's writing to be arrogant and inaccessible on purpose. And that was before I started looking at it through a theological lens. So transcendentalism, if you need a refresher, was a spiritual movement that started in the early 19th century, mostly in New England of the United States, and of which, quote, a core belief is in the inherent goodness of people and nature. And while society and its institutions have corrupted the purity of the individual, people are at their best when truly self-reliant and independent. End quote. Did anyone else hear the record scratch again? Self-reliant, independent, that sounds like the opposite of needing one another, right? Well, here's the point of the side quest. I interpret Emerson's words a lot differently. Much like the Bible, Emerson's words have been misinterpreted and used for other folks' agendas since he wrote them. America's ideal of rugged individualism is grounded in some of Emerson's work. I think that they're actually not even connected. He was not foretelling us about the rugged individualism that American capitalism encourages. Rather, what he was saying is, we don't need an intermediary to experience the divine. He encouraged us to rely on our own human intuition, and that will deepen our spirituality. We don't need specially anointed interpreters of God's word. We don't need each other, we're self-reliant, but really, we can define our faith for ourselves. We can define what is sacred for ourselves. And transcendentalists had this really both and life that I admire now that I am on this side of reading Emerson's words through a theological lens, that they both had a 10,000-foot view of the world and a hyper-local view of an individual's experience of that world. The world is dynamic. Divinity is all around, and we experience it in our own bodies. What we can see from the 10,000-foot view often, if we're looking and paying attention, is that as individuals, we're actually all moving in concert with one another like a murmuration of starlings. All right, thanks for taking the side quest. Thought it was important to inject some UU history in there and to understand a little bit more about that individualism, which I think is actually more individuality of the transcendentalists. And maybe detours are super comfortable right now because literally every single road out of my neighborhood is under construction. So I feel good in detours, I guess. So at the beginning, I said there were two reasons that I was going to share, right? The first reason was that it happened to me, and now the other reason is because I became a Unitarian Universalist. Learning what my own faith is in that way that Emerson talks about, right? Experiencing and living into my own theology taught me we're all in this together. That we're all reliant on each other. You know, the murmurations of starlings, they work because they all are doing it. They're all propelling each other forward. We create our own beloved community through our everyday actions, right? That's what moved my heart into the holy place where I could receive those blessings of love and amazing grace. Yeah? So I'm going to give you an example of everyday lives. Philosophically, politically, I support the closings of prisons and defunding the police. I am unequivocally an abolitionist. And like one of the original Universalists, Hosea Ballou, I strongly, deeply believe in the power of love and compassion to transform people and communities. And I know that punishment, or the threat of punishment, is not how we are going to convince or even coerce anyone to do the next right thing. Because when we punish people, and I learned this as a parent very viscerally, all we do is teach them how to not get caught, right? We don't teach them to make ethical choices. And I suppose in the short term, that's a great solution, right? But it doesn't do anything to create the beloved community. It actually builds a lot of sneakiness and underhanded actions. So because I believe this is a political stance, right, I try to do things in my daily life that reflect that. And that is, one of those ways, is to not act like a cop to the people around me. I don't police the people around me. I don't audit their behavior. I don't get to choose who's welcome when I say all are welcome, because that welcome is unqualified. If we are building the beloved community and we are united in our struggle for collective liberation, we have to deal with our conflict, not kick it out. Right, I got very close to that. That would have been a big conflict for everyone. So, conflict is not a reason to give up on getting free. In fact, at this year's General Assembly, the Reverend Cecilia Kingman taught me that actually liberation is pretty costly, because we all have to slog through the rough parts of building community. And it may be a cliche, doesn't make it untrue, that the only way out is through. Another way I can practice my abolitionist ideals in my daily life is to seek redemption when I have done wrong. As a Unitarian Universalist, I know that we create our own universal salvation. I do not try to make mistakes, obviously, like I try to avoid making mistakes. And while I do try to avoid hurting people on purpose, I also know that I do both of those things on a fairly regular basis. And when I do, and either I realize it or someone else points it out, I need to seek redemption. And a lot of times what we hear in that space where I said redemption is the term accountability. And I don't hate that word. I don't have a lot against it. But what I think is true is that we're all confused by the word accountability. And we hear punishment when we hear accountability. And that's not what accountability is. You know, accountability doesn't mean that a person who we perceive to be at fault has to be destructed or annihilated in some way for repair to happen. Actually, accountability is about the repair just as much as it is about natural consequences for our actions. So it's not so much that you said or did the terrible thing, it's what you did next, right? It's what happened after that. It's like, musicians, and we'll reference jazz in particular, given our reading, it's not, there's not a bad note. It's what you'd play next. What's the next note? That'll make the other note bad or good, right? So if you make a mistake, do the next right thing. So, small detour, just tiny. When I've had this conversation in other places, I've been challenged with the question, well, what about abusers and predators? Do they deserve to be in the beloved community? It's always like asked as a gotcha, right? Gotcha. Well, there is a longer answer. My initial answer is that while we may need to create structures or boundaries for an individual's safety, universal means universal. And if we start drawing lines to include some people, but not others, who decides where the lines get drawn? In her book, We Will Not Cancel Us, and Other Dreams of Transformative Justice, which I commend to you heartily, the prophetic Adrienne Marie Brown argues that when someone does harm, we focus too narrowly on punishment and exclusion, which doesn't do anything to address the root causes of harm. Brown instead asks us to focus on transformative justice through reconciliation when appropriate and healing. And those things can only happen in community, not isolation. And definitely not if we're kicking people out of community, right, before we even have the chance to heal. Isolation will never, ever create an opportunity for healing or growth, because those things happen in tandem with other people. We also need to ask ourselves and interrogate when we feel conflict, is this harm or is this conflict, right? Harm is something different than conflict, and we ask ourselves, is it harm or is it conflict? Far too often, we overstate conflict as harm. We, as underground writer and public intellectual Clementine Morgan says, conflate interpersonal conflict with interpersonal violence to bolster our rejection or exclusion of someone from community. Here's the thing. Humans disagree. Humans hurt each other's feelings. Humans break each other's hearts. I have done those things. I've had those things done to me. And I'm sure that most of you can think of a time when you've done that or it's been done to you many times in your life. And those are all difficult, hard things. But they are not abuse. Conflict makes us nervous and uneasy, especially if we are middle class and white. Abuse makes us terrified. Do you understand, do you grok that difference? Like being ill at ease versus being scared to death. Those are the differences. These are categorically, emphatically different things. Sarah Schulman, in her book, Conflict is Not Abuse, another one that I commend to you, echoes what Brown and Morgan, and maybe even Ballou said. Schulman tells us that in many cases we escalate conflict into an accusation of abuse because we are uncomfortable or feel structurally powerless or we don't know how to resolve conflict. And she argues, and this is actually she argues that this is actually counterproductive. Like Brown, Schulman advocates that we address root causes of conflict rather than punishing people. So when we feel that unease or nervousness, we need to ask ourselves, is this conflict? What are the root causes of this conflict? Am I feeling powerless? Am I hurt? Am I otherwise emotionally activated? which, by the way, feel free to use the term emotionally activated instead of triggered. I feel like trigger has become a trigger word and like makes people behave in certain ways, and that's not, we don't need to do that. We can say emotionally activated, which is also a therapy word, but I think it works better. And we will not always be able to identify the root causes of things. And part of that is because we've learned so thoroughly to not see them, to not see the root causes, but to rather locate the source of our discomfort on another individual's behavior, right? Rather than in a system that has been designed to keep us from getting free. If I think back to that conflict with that old colleague, comrade, friend, which resulted in her working to kick me out of that community, or at least exclude me on some level. I've been trying to think about what the root causes were. First of all, we were literally 3,000 miles away from one another, and we were doing our work by telephone and email. This Zoom was not real then. And it was work that was emotional and had real immediate impact on our daily lives, our own lives. We were trying to make change in a homophobic system that was regularly and actively harming us. And there were times I know I felt powerless. And sometimes when we feel systemically powerless, we wield power in the only places we can, against one another. So one of the best tools that I have ever learned to address conflict, and this works whether you are a conflict avoidant person or a conflict engaging person, or you're highly skilled at conflict, right? You are a litigator, you conflict all the time, conflict all day, all night. It still works the best, as far as I've been able to determine. And that's because that's how we need to reorient from a conflict between people to a problem that we need to address together. So instead of me versus you in this conflict, it's actually us versus the problem. And that's how we figure it out. That's how we create right relationship and build the beloved community. We need one another. And remember, I was saying we have to slog through the difficult parts of building community, right? That part of that is having conflict with one another and facing it as a problem that we both need to address. My old comrade and I could have said to one another, I want to figure this out with you. I could have apologized, and perhaps we could have repaired what was damaged. Obviously, it's not too late. I know that I create my own salvation, as I said. I just need to look for the opportunity. I invite you to look for your opportunities as well. What conflicts in your life can you address by teaming up with the other people involved? Who can you invite to figure it out with you? Because we need one another to survive, and right now is the time. Because it feels like the end times to me most days. And late stage capitalism and the white cis heteropatriarchy have done a damn fine job of isolating us from one another. And it leads us to believe we're all islands and nothing is further from the truth. We need to resist that isolation by striving for our collective liberation in every breath. I need you, beloveds. I need you to survive. All right, we're going to sing. So if you could rise in all the ways that we do, body, mind, spirit, we're going to sing hymn 1021, Lean on Me. And because I love you, I'm not going to do it in front of the microphone.
Sometimes in our lives we all have pain,
we all have sorrow. But if we are wise, we know that there's always tomorrow. Lean on me when you're not strong, and I'll be your friend. I'll help you carry on, for it won't be long till I'm gonna need somebody to lean on. And please swallow your pride if I have things you need to borrow, for no one can fill those of your needs that you ain't let show. Lean on me when you're not strong, and I'll be your friend. I'll help you carry on, for it won't be long till I'm gonna need somebody to lean on. You just call on me, brother, when you need a hand. We all need somebody to lean on. I just might have a problem that you'd understand. We all need somebody to lean on. And if there is a load you have to bear that you can carry, and right up the road, I'll share your load. If you just call me, lean on me when you're not strong, and I'll be your friend. I'll help you carry on, for it won't be long till I'm gonna need somebody to lean on. Just call on me, brother, when you need a hand. We all need somebody to lean on. I just might have a problem that you'd understand. We all need somebody to lean on. Lean on me when you're not strong, and I'll be your friend. I'll help you carry on, for it won't be long till I'm gonna need somebody to lean on.
Okay. Our chalice extinguishing words come from Adrienne Marie Brown. Do you already know that your existence, who and how you are, is in and of itself a contribution to the people and place around you? Not after or because you do some particular thing, but simply the miracle of your life. And the people around you and the places have contributions as well. Do you understand that your quality of life and your survival are tied to how authentic and generous the connections are between you and the people and the place you live with and in? Are you actively practicing generosity and vulnerability in order to make the connections between you and others clear, open, available, durable? Generosity here means giving of what you have without strings or expectations attached. Vulnerability means showing your needs. If you're feeling anxiety, let's feel those feelings, and let's invite others to show up with and for us. If we're feeling grief, let's feel those feelings, and let's invite others to show up with and for us. If we're feeling hope, let's feel those feelings, and let's invite others to show up with and for us. If we're feeling love, let's feel those feelings, And let's invite others to show up with and for us. And let's keep showing up with and for others too. And now we have a bonus, not in the bulletin. We have a benediction and the fire squad.
This is a sneak attack benediction. But stay for announcements after. May we carry the wisdom of interdependence in our hearts, embracing the truth that no one is disposable. Recognizing our shared humanity, may we nurture love, compassion, and transformative justice in ourselves and one another. As we navigate the challenges of a world that often isolates us, may we resist the forces that seek to keep us apart in the spirit of interdependence and in the service of our collective liberation. Go forward to create a world where love and justice reign. Amen. Blessed be.
Okay, and now it says we have 4 announcements to share with you, and more information about our events in the congregation can be found or posted in the weekly newsletter and on our website, northwestuu.org. First of all, you're invited to join us for coffee, tea, and light snacks after the service in the multipurpose room. Next, the memorial service for Margot Julian at Allegria Village in Dearborn has been postponed until October. A new date will be announced. Then the Peace for Ruth Ellis Center donations. The Peace Camp will be collecting items to donate to the Ruth Ellis Center in Detroit as this year's service project. The Ruth Ellis Center has established a national reputation for quality and innovation in providing trauma-informed services for lesbian, gay, bi-attractional, transgender, and questioning youth and young adults, with an emphasis on young people of color experiencing homelessness, involved in the child welfare system, and or experiencing barriers to health and well-being. The supplies such as toothpaste, body wash, soap, shampoo, conditioner, and so on. Please drop off donations by today, Sunday, June 16th. And lastly, dialogue on race and ethnicity. This is a monthly gathering to have a dialogue on race and ethnicity on the third Wednesday from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. The next session will be this Wednesday, July 19th. We will review and discuss the majority and dissenting opinions from the recent Supreme Court case that overturned affirmative action in university admissions. Please join us and bring a friend. Now we're Postlude.
And we will care for each other as the world around us unravels, and we will tend to the spark of hope that lives within our grieving hearts. And we are here now in this present moment, lifting our voices and hearts. And we are here now, we have come together, we are tending the spark of hope. As the world around us unravels, of hope that lives within our grieving hearts. And we are here now in this present moment, lifting our voices and hearts. And we are here